Yes, let me click on this. Got it. And I'll start with the 4 great vows and 3 refuge. Please close your palms. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Vow, 问讯. Refuge in the Triple Gem. I take refuge in the Buddha, and I wish all sentient beings will awaken to the great path and make the supreme resolution. Vow. I take refuge in the Dharma, and I wish all sentient beings will penetrate the sutras, their wisdom as deep as the ocean. Vow. I take refuge in the Sangha, and I wish all sentient beings will be brought together in great harmony without any obstructions at all. Bow. And before we begin, let us bow and thank our teacher, Gilbert.
Okay, let me get myself set up here. Okay, Omitofo. It's very interesting when we do the 4 great vows, because when we do the vows, there is a second portion of that which says and ends with I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings of self-nature, to cut off endless vexations of self-nature, to practice limitless approaches to Dharma self-nature, to attain supreme Buddhahood of self-nature. This is very, very important, because this self-nature is the very self-nature that all these ancient masters are talking about. It is the part that we don't understand. It is the part that we want to understand as an individual or ego, or as the Diamond Sutra says, a personality or ego or life and being, but cannot. This is beyond understanding, but it is the self-nature of mind that essentially we are absorbing into. So it's very important for us to remember when we make these vows with the right view, that all of these vows are being made with the idea of that this is our self-nature. The innumerable sentient beings are our self-nature. Who is our? It's mind alone. We don't need to say even our, it just simply is mine. So everything is absorbed in that realization or awakening that it is just this mind. It is what the ancients began with, what Shakyamuni Buddha began with, and was brought forth into China, and was propagated by the patriarchs from Bodhidharma all the way through to Huineng, and then from there there was fertile ground in which there were many masters which came after Master Huineng. And I want to concentrate on one of them from the early 9th century, Master Huang Po, because I think at this point we are getting from this classical period into this literary period of Chan. But Master Huang Po wants to make sure that everybody really understands what they're practicing. And in his statements reflect all of the echoes of the masters that came before him, all the admonitions of the master that came before him, all the instructions that were there in a very clear and concise way. And we could say that he is maybe middle ground here in terms of Chan, and later what was brought forth by other masters after him. They all saying the same thing, all the way to Master Shu Yu and to Master Shen Yang, to all the contemporary masters. they all are talking about just this ekayana, this mind. And there's an interesting part, because although people have different ways of presenting Chan in their own style, in their own personality, it nevertheless reflects a commonality to it, a home base of foundational principles. And the most important is the ekayana, just this one mind. And then the functioning of the mind, which is the pratika samapada, or causes and conditions never fail. And so that this pratika samapada is so ingrained in this that it's not really a concept or a characteristic of mind. It is, in the sutras, referred to as mind itself. And when we begin to approach it from a different perspective, that perspective or perception is the mind's own perception, then we're able to open up the perception of mind without any kind of an obstruction or filter that will prevent us from being able to awaken to this. The awakening is simply putting down conceptual thought. If you can, in this moment, put down conceptual thought and simply rest in mind, there will be nothing but mind there. Little by little, the mind will become clearer, broader, vast, powerful, infinite. But we don't know that, and we cannot know that. And so the masters present the practice of Chan in a manner in which it is not based on definitions or any kind of objective points. It is based on the experiential. Look into it for yourself. It is why when I tell you to jump, I was trying to go over that, because like last time I think I told you to jump, and I think on Monday night class I told people just jump into the void. But it's not easy to do that. It's from, if one has some form of even a small realization, that would make sense. But it's difficult because you go, where am I going to jump to? But the jumping is the releasing of conceptual thinking, of letting go of that. So when we sit to meditate, that's why meditation can be so valuable and powerful if we do it right. If we do it wrong, we're just heating up a cushion, and that will lead to nowhere. What the ancient masters talk about, that you can be sitting there for eons. And what's also interesting is that in this idea in Chan of what we call subitism, sudden enlightenment, there is this faith that one at any time can be absorbed by mind, rather than calling it an awakening, because we say if we're awakened, then there may be somebody that is awakened. It isn't necessarily an awakening, it's just simply the joining with mind, a connecting with mind, where you were out on the outside, all of a sudden, now it's just mind, but you have to let go of the you. This is not easy for us to do, because even the idea of the you, the conception of the you, is conceptual thinking. We don't understand that because we don't know that we're a conjuring, we're an appearance within mind. We want to give ourselves some form of a certainty, some form of everlasting, some form of something. This is why in the Judeo-Christian belief system, they initiated the soul. Also in the Vedic religions, that there is an idea of a soul. But to Buddhists, there's no transmigration of a soul from one lifetime to another. It's a continuum. And pratika samapada, it just continues on. We don't know that. We think that we pick up and start all over again somewhere, but it is not necessarily in this way. So when Master Huang Po's talking, he's talking and bringing forth the wisdom of the ancients, and in a manner in which he's hoping that this echoing of wisdom will continue on into the future, which obviously he did a very good job of doing it, because I'm presenting it to you now, many years, 1200 years later. So it lasted. So let's talk about the Zen teachings of Master Huang Po. He starts, the original Buddha nature is, in the highest truth, devoid of any atom of objectivity. So in its highest truth, meaning that there's actually not even a truth anymore, because there's no objectivity. So if we have objectivity, we would say, oh, this is the truth, this is the way. But it's not really in this way, but he's using words to try to take you up to a certain point, but there's where you have to jump. It is void, omnipresent, silent, pure. It is glorious and mysterious, peaceful joy. And that is all. Now, here is the part that gets difficult for practitioners, because we're able to subdue our thinking when we sit to meditate, and we may experience some form of a joy. But this is still not at the highest level. We have not reached even to reached upika, which is a state of equanimity or equilibrium with things. But it's still not bad, this Dharma joy. But people stop there and think, oh, this is wonderful, this is beautiful. You know, they want to sing songs and roll in the grass and smell flowers and look at the sky. That's not it. That's not it. There's objectivity there. There's a feeling of an emotion of joy. But this perception of joy is mind itself. It is not a sensation of a sentient being feeling something. It is just the mind at rest. We have where we talk about the Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya, the Dharmakaya. And so one is the reward body. And the reward body is this kind of a feeling of joy. It is not separate from the other two, and the Dharmakaya being the mind ground, and then the appearance body. But this reward body is just the feeling of what this master is describing right now. Enter deeply into it by awakening to it yourself. That which is before you is it. That's what Master Ling Chi said. If you want to see it, just look, you'll see it. Whatever you see is it. Master Sheng used to say, you're always swimming in it all the time, just swimming, swimming, swimming. And he would laugh, but people go, you look very funny doing that, Shifu, but I don't understand what you're saying. Because it was just mine. He's just talking about mine. And it's everywhere. And this is what Master Huang Po is saying. That which is before you is it in all its fullness, utterly complete. There is nothing beside. Even if you go through all the stages of a bodhisattva's progress towards Buddhahood, the bhumis, one by one, when at last in a single flash, you attain full realization, you will only be realizing the Buddha nature, which has been with you all of the time. And by all the foregoing stages that you have added nothing to it at all. So here you are, and you're going, you know, what level are you? I'm at the third bhumi, the fourth bhumi, or whatever. Don't ever tell me that. Okay. If I could voluntarily pass gas, I probably would at that moment. It isn't in this way. What the master's saying is that there's not these levels. Sometimes we get too caught up in these levels of this and this and this level and this level. This is why Master Huineng talked about Subitism, the sudden realization, because it comes suddenly. It doesn't matter whether it was the first door you knocked on or the 84,000th door that you knocked on. It's no different. It is the same. And so at that point, entering that door, you realize there's no door, there's no levels, there's no objectivity, there's no no, and no yes. It's such. You will come to look upon all those eons of work and achievement as no better than unreal actions performed in a dream. I absolutely love this line because it's something that I base a lot of my teaching on, is just this dream, just like the end of the Diamond Sutra, saying that everything is an illusion, a phantasm, a dream. And so here he's saying, you look at this as just a dream because you realize this is illusory. Does not mean that it's not real, doesn't mean that it's real. It just means that it's a transient part of mind, what we call conditioned mind, appearing, anything conditioned rises and falls. The unconditioned is the mind ground that enables all these things to rise and fall in accordance with its own pratika samappada. That is why the Tathagata said, I truly attained nothing from complete unexcelled enlightenment. So the Buddha said, hey, you know, so people ask, what did you get? I got nothing. And they kind of look, that's kind of a chip. Like, what do you mean nothing? You get nothing out of it? What is there to get? They're looking at it from inside the egg, inside of samsara. And so as a result, they don't understand what he's saying. Had there been anything to attain, Dipankara Buddha would not have made the prophecy concerning me. And again, this really sounds right to me. Sounds, when I say sounds, it's something that I use all the time, talking about Dipankara and predicting that the Buddha would become a Buddha, and to negate the idea of time or space, and to say that all, of course, it's like throwing a dart into the air and hoping to hit the target. Wherever the dart is thrown, even if it's thrown into empty space, it hits the target, because even the empty space is not outside of mind. So it is returning to this ekayana, saying everything is folded in to this self-nature. Okay. He also said this Dharma is absolutely without distinctions, neither high nor low. And its name is Bodhi. So this is important too, because when we talk about this and we say its name is Bodhi, is the name is just simply the recognition or the perception of the function of mind, which is the karuna, the interest in relieving the suffering of sentient beings. Even though the sentient beings are within mind, there nevertheless is an interest there. This is not something that is easily accepted or gathered, or certainly cannot be understood. It must be approached with faith, that one sees it and sees that all things are connected in this way. It is pure mind, which is the source of everything, and which neither appearing as sentient beings or as Buddhas, rivers, or mountains of the world, which has form, and that which is formless, or as penetrating the whole universe absolutely without distinctions, there being no entities as selfness or otherness. So now he's going through and saying, these things, they're just appearances. We see that all the way up to the universe itself. All of that is in the realm of mind. And when we talk about the realm of mind, there's no other realm. It is just mind. That's why then we cut off realm and then just say mind or suchness with this. It's saying that, because it's a source of everything, it can't be known by any mark, such as in the Diamond Sutra. It is very clear that the Buddha cannot be known by the 32 marks that they lay out and say that this is what a Buddha looks like, but it cannot be known by those marks, because then that's objectivity, which is there, or conceptual. And so when we do that, we have statues to represent the Buddha. We have statues to represent Kuan Yin, Samantabhadra, Manjusri. We have statues representing many different bodhisattvas and Buddhas, but those are simply representations. We could call them bookmarks or reminders for us to practice, not something such as a deity that we hold in high esteem and hope that will help us. When we practice in this way of the Buddhism, it's more devotional and more closer to a Judeo-Christian type of a belief system that there's a God that is going to assist us. Of course, we can ask Kuan Yin Bodhisattva for assistance and compassion, but we don't ask all the time. We certainly don't ask to win the lottery or some foolishness like that, but we are mindful that this statue that we bow to, that we burn incense, we give flowers to, is a reminder and a representation of our own Bodhi. It's there. And you go, well, where's the Bodhi at? Not in your body, just simply because you're already part of the Gotra, the clan of the Buddha. So you are already admitted, you have a card. Buddha clan. Buddha clan is represented in appearances many different places. It appears to be divided, but in actuality, there's no division whatsoever. The foulest of the human beings and the most saintly of the human beings both possess Buddha nature. And this was very interesting in early Buddhism, where there was a belief that there were some people who could not become Buddha because if they did something such as killing a Buddha or affecting a Sangha, things like that, killing a mother or father, then they cannot become a Buddha. Doesn't necessarily mean they can't do it. It just means it's going to take them a lot longer to go through the process. But the Mahayana Buddhists discovered this kind of a problem with this, and the doctrine set forth that all sentient beings possess Buddha nature. It cannot be inexclusive, because if it is, then where do these people go? So if they jump in the void, do they jump into nihilism? No. So it is understood that the main guide in terms of what appears in the world is Pratika Samappada. Pratika Samappada, then one must be part of Buddha nature in order for that to function. Otherwise, one would be outside of that. That's not possible. There's nothing outside of it. And so as you begin to see this, then you can look into it to contemplate, to try to awaken to this. These are the clues. So also when it's talking about this in terms of the, is the source of everything, and it's talking about different things, it's also going to the fact that it's not self. Everything is empty. Everything is impermanent. So these three marks are very, very important for us to rely upon. This pure mind is the source of everything, shines forever, and on all with brilliance of its own perfection. But people of the world do not awaken to it, regarding only that which he sees, hears, feels, knows as mine, blinded by their own sight, hearing, feeling, and knowing. They do not perceive the spiritual brilliance of the source substance because they're using the samsaric vision to see things. And in the samsaric vision, it's limited. It is like if one was to listen to something as a human being, we have a limited hearing range. Maybe with enhanced instruments, we can hear more, but the dogs can hear more. They can smell more than us. Does that make them superior to us because of theirs? So it's something that is very interesting, that when we look at it, it isn't in this way. If they would only eliminate all conceptual thought in a flash, that source substance would manifest itself like the sun ascending through the void and illuminating the whole universe without hindrance or bounds. So again, they're looking at this and saying, eliminate conceptual thought. Mind is there. Mind is the Dharmakaya, the mind ground, that if one releases the mind from conceptual thought, then it gets to what they call the source substance. Here he's referring to it as the source substance. I would refer to it as the Dharmakaya, this mind ground that is there. It's always present. It doesn't have a form. How could it have a form? It is what produces form, what it produces appearances. Without the Dharmakaya, nothing would be there. There would be no discussion. There would not be me talking to you. Nothing would be there. The only reason that my appearance is here is because of causes and conditions, pratika samapala. And so the reason you're listening is you have an interest in this. So you are being produced, and this moment is being produced by this, where he's calling it the source substance. You could call it the mind ground, but the source substance is the very fabric of mind. So appearances within mind are made out of mind. It can only be mind. It cannot be anything else. And so we get beyond the point of whether we say is real or not real. And this is why Nagarjuna in the Madhyamika school denied or refused to answer the question as to which one was real, apparent reality, or absolute reality, because his very silence on the subject pointed to the substance of the mind itself. So I also want to point out when he said, if you would only eliminate all conceptual thought in a flash, he's telling you how to meditate. When you meditate, your mind must be aware of thoughts that are arising. We do not stick to those thoughts. If the thought is stuck to, it's an akusala thought, a Sanskrit word meaning to stick. So we want it to be kusala, a non-sticky thought. Just let it go by like the clouds in the sky. You just let it go by. This thought then is not going to stick. It's just arising naturally in accordance with causes and conditions. When we produce conceptual thinking in our meditation, then we are not doing it properly. We must sever the mind that desires continuation. You go, what's that? How can I do that? Because you're not an I. You're part of mind. But the only way you can continually make the appearance that you truly exist is by continuing to think. If you stop your thinking in that moment, then the mind ground will appear. Doesn't mean that you go away, doesn't mean that you can't get off your cushion. When you get up off your cushion, your problems are going to be there, your victories are going to be there, your money's still going to be in the bank. You know, you still have to go to work on Monday. The only difference is you know that this is all in accordance with causes and conditions. The job you have, the wife or husband you have, the kids you have, the pets you have, where you live, all of these things are all connected together. And then you see it. But the only thing is that you see it from the perception of mind, not from the perception of the senses, is which what Master Huang Po is telling you. Don't rely on those. Don't rely on the senses. Therefore, if you students of the way seek to progress through seeing, hearing, feeling, and knowing, when you are deep ends, your mind will enter. So if you're seeking the progress through conceptual thinking, through any of the senses or whatever, even if you stop your mind from thinking, which is possible, you will enter into what's called a dead samadhi. A dead samadhi is when you're meditating and there's no thought, there's no nothing. When we speak of Wu Nian, no thought, Wu Nian does not mean that there's no thoughts that are being produced. When you're meditating, there is a thought that's being produced. That is staying with the method in the present moment. That's all you think about. But it is still there, and the lights are not off. You are aware of your environment, perfectly aware of it. You could hear a cricket walk into the room. You're that aware. When you enter into a dead samadhi, there's nothing there. It's as if you have become catatonic, and then when you hear the bell or you get up, then all of a sudden you resume your samsaric life, because you were still relying on these senses to bring you to some kind of a realization, which is not going to happen. I know that this is very deep, but listen with your heart. Try to feel this. Don't try to understand it. Try to feel it. Okay. Only realize that though real mind is expressed in these perceptions, it neither forms part of them nor is separate from them. And this is very important, because you go, what? He's saying, well, it's not part of them. The real mind is not part of them, but it's not separate from them. It's not separate because the mind ground, the unconditioned, is always there. It's like a chalkboard. And the chalk, which is appearances, is marking, but every once in a while it changes and you wipe that off. But you cannot wipe off the chalkboard. The chalkboard is there and it's there. So it is part of it, to the extent that all of these appearances are appearing somewhere. They're being projected onto mind. These appearances then are illusions or dreams. So you're in a dream world, but you perceive it to be real. You perceive it to be, you knock on the desk and you hear a knock and it's firm and you say, this is firm. But how many times have you been in a dream when you swear it's real? Something's chasing after you, or something's happening to you. You're getting an award or whatever it is, but it's not real. But you could swear it is. And it's the same thing with this illusory world. It's temporary. But that which it is projected on is real. But we cannot say, oh, my dream was real, we could say your dream is made of a real substance, which is mind, but it is the conditioned aspect of mind. It is not the fundamental aspect of mind. You should not start reasoning from these perceptions or allow them to give rise to conceptual thought. You seek the mind apart from them or abandon them in pursuit of the Dharma. Do not keep them, nor abandon them, nor dwell on them, nor cleave on them. Above, below, and around you, all is spontaneously existing. For there is nowhere which is outside of the Buddha mind. So he's talking about conceptual thought again and saying that you don't seek it apart from mind. You don't try to look for something that's already there. You just have to have faith that it's there, and that you don't abandon the lessons that I'm presenting to you, or Huang Po's lessons, or Bodhidharma's lessons. You hold on to them to help you to form a foundation on which to practice on, but understanding that the Dharma, you could call the secret Dharma or the hidden Dharma, which they call the esoteric, is not expressed in words. But we cannot fantasize about that or conceptualize about it. We just have to set into motion the conditions to enable us to have the self-absorption in mind. When people of the world hear it said that the Buddhists transmit the doctrine of mind, they suppose that there's something to be attained or realized apart from mind. And thereupon they use mind to seek Dharma, not knowing that mind and the object of their search are one. Mind cannot be used to seek something apart from mind. For then, after the passing of millions of eons, the day of suchness will not have dawned. Such a method is not to be compared with suddenly eliminating conceptual thought, which is the fundamental Dharma. This is this fundamental Dharma that we look at, and we can look at it in a way in which we look at a primordial Buddha, that it's there, it's always been there. It is never not been. You can't say exist or not exist. It's not existing. It is. It's in its suchness. And so when we accept that, then we move away from this trying to grasp, to reach, to get something, to put something down, to put Gilbert down, to put this world down, to head to something. When I tell you that the world is a dream, doesn't mean that I negate the world. The world is appearing in mind. It is not in this way. It is this kind of a conundrum as to how it's like gum on your shoe. How do you scrape it off? Well, the answer is you don't have to scrape it off, because that gum appears there due to causes and conditions. If you went to the mall and gum stuck to your shoe and you bring it home and you go, well, where did this gum come from? Oh, of course, I got it when I was walking in the mall. It's very simple. So when you see things, it is very simple. We don't have to try to make everything disappear. It is just this fundamental Dharma, which is the esoteric, that is critical, that we have to join with. Suppose a warrior, forgetting that he was already wearing his pearl on his forehead, were to seek for it elsewhere. He could travel the whole world without finding it. But if someone knew what was wrong, where to point it out to him, the warrior would immediately realize that the pearl had been there all the time. So if you students of the way are mistaken about your own real mind, not recognizing that it is the Buddha, you will consequently look for him elsewhere, indulging in various achievements and practices and expecting to attain realization by such graduated practices. And I'm here to tell you that that happened to me. I don't necessarily think I was very noble or warrior-like, but once I was late for court and I was trying to get myself ready and I was putting things in my pocket and gathering things up from where I had them. And I noticed my keys were not there. I'm going, where are my keys? And so I went around the house looking for the keys all over the house, trying to find the keys. Where's the keys? I can't go to court if I can't drive the car. Where's the keys? I was exasperated, up and down the stairs, checking, rechecking 2 times, 3 times, looking for all of the keys where could I find these keys? Finally, I spoke out loud and I went, where are those keys? And then I realized that I had put the keys, I was holding them in my mouth so I could put everything else in. And I had forgotten that I was carrying them around with me all the time. So I had the key all the time. I just didn't know it. I was ignorant in that moment, rushing here and there to try to find it. This is stupid. Yeah, but it happens. But this is what we do, looking for the key to mind, is we look all over, like Master Ling Chi saying, cut off our head to look for our head. We cannot do that. We have to look at this very carefully, lay it all out, lay it out. And when we see it, and then we enable the mind to stop conceptual thinking, it will come. It will come to us. We just don't have to force it. But even after eons of diligent searching, you will not be able to attain the way. These methods cannot be compared to sudden illumination, sudden elimination of conceptual thought. In the certain knowledge that there is nothing at all which has absolute existence, nothing on which to lay hold, nothing on which to rely, nothing on which to abide, nothing subjective or objective. It is by preventing the rise of conceptual thought that you will realize Bodhi. And when you do, you will just be realizing the Buddha existed in your own mind. Eons of striving will prove to be so much wasted effort. Just as when a warrior found his pearl, he merely discovered what had been hanging on his forehead all of his time. And just as his finding of it had nothing to do with his efforts. Think about this. His finding had nothing to do with his efforts to discover it elsewhere. This is why Master Huineng said that it is this sudden enlightenment, this subitism, this immediately entering by utilizing faith and the proper understanding in order to guide the mind, settle the mind. And when the mind is settled, there is no way you cannot find the way. But if we create a path, if we create the idea of mind, then we can go for eons trying to find our true nature. And we think that this true nature is something that I possess. We don't understand that the true nature is that which manifests this appearance that is appearing before you today and talking to you today, and those that are listening. They're not other than you. although these appearances are appearances, within each and every one of you is the Buddha mind. You are already in this, in the Gotra or the clan of the Buddha. You don't have to know a secret handshake or pay dues or whatever. Even here, this master saying you don't have to pay dues. Even if you went for eons, it would have been the same thing if somebody told you how to do it. It would just be that way. But I hope one day that you will awaken and realize this for your own, that this is the true and proper understanding. See if I have some time. Master Wang Po then was presented questions, which I think are very good questions to work with. One of the questions was, what is the way and how must it be followed? So these are the questions that any kind of a master or Dharma presenter gets all the time. What is the way and how must it be followed? It is very funny because Master Ling Chi got so tired of that, even in one of his treatises. He says, if you ever happen upon a follower of the way, don't ask him about the way. Don't ask him that, like, what is the way? And so how must it be followed? So he turns it back around and says, what sort of thing do you suppose the way to be, that you should wish to follow it? So he's now turning around saying, your question presupposes a conceptual thinking. So how could you possibly do that? First, define to me what the way means. Next question, what instructions have masters everywhere given for the dhyana practice and the study of the Dharma? So he says, what instructions have the masters everywhere given in this practice? So what do you think a master would say? Because he's saying, what is like the universal truth? What is a universal instruction? And so he very adeptly responds by saying, words are words used to attract the dull of wit are not to be relied on. So in this way, he's telling them, if you are promising a bunch of stuff just to lure in a bunch of dull-witted people, those words, they're not to be relied on. The first thing would be sincerity of the practice. You sincerely want to practice, you sincerely want to do something, but if you're just there and you're kind of coming out for a handout, like trick or treat, and you want something put in your hand, it's not going to happen in that way. And there's no magic elixir or any kind of a magic phrase that will deliver you. Next question. If those teachings were meant for the dull-witted, I have yet to hear what Dharma has been taught to those of really high capacity. So he said, if this is all for the dull-witted, then what Dharma do you teach to the real high capacity people? So Master Wang Po replied, if they are really people of high capacity, where could you find people to follow? So if you already have the capacity, then where are you going to find somebody to follow? Because at that point, the people are seen as an illusion. If they seek from within themselves, they will find nothing tangible. Much less they can find a Dharma worthy of their attention elsewhere. Do not look to what is called the Dharma by the teachers, for what sort of Dharma can that be? And this is something that I'm always talking about. And I always tell people, don't call me a Dharma teacher. I have nothing to teach you, nothing to teach. No, but I am simply presenting manners in which you can practice and fulfill with your own faith and sincerity. But if the words were so valuable and so everlasting and perfect, then they would be able to render you enlightened immediately. But there are no such words that do this. It all comes from generating the Bodhi heart of a Bodhisattva, someone who has an interest in the suffering of others. And then if we have that, we're not too far from it, and we no longer have any concern about our own salvation or awakening or realization. We just understand that this is beneficial to people because it can take away their suffering. Not bad. So there is not this secret Dharma. There's not a special Dharma. I've been talking for so many years. People have had realizations from my talks, but they're not produced by me, but produced by the causes and conditions that were there, and the sincere inquiry of the students to look into it for themselves, to see it for themselves, not to rely on any words or any master. I've seen so many people, they go from master to master, trying to find a master that will be able to deliver them. And they go, oh, this one's better than the other one. This one can do this, or this one, he knows your thoughts, or this one, he can tell you your past, or this one can tell you your future. All sorts of nonsense like this, thinking that those are special skills. They're not. But we should not do that. We should understand that mind is king, and that we should investigate mind. This very mind you have here is what you should investigate. You study the Dharma to keep you on the right direction in terms of where to look, but you have to do the digging. If that is so, should we not seek anything at all? So now he's like throwing the baby out with the bathwater. By considering this, you would save yourself a lot of mental effort. So the master beautifully turns it around by saying, should we not seek for anything at all? And saying, bingo, you got it. Wow, it only took you how long to figure this out? And he's going, I did. What did I do? I don't even know who's on first or what's on second. I don't know. But the master's pointing to him, this is the way. Don't throw anything out. But in this way, everything would be eliminated. There cannot just be nothing. Now, so here comes the fear of a sentient being looking towards nihilism and not understanding what mind is, which is all-inclusive rather than all-exclusive. And so he thinks it's nothing. So then the master depthly asks him a question. Who called it nothing? Who was this fellow? But you wanted to seek for something. So it's very interesting because he's looking and he's calling the attention, shaking it, shaking the tree. The leaves may fall off, but the trunk and the roots are there. Can't he feel that? Can he feel the appearance of that? But the roots go deep into the Dharmakaya. Since there's no need to seek, why do you say that say that not everything is eliminated? Very interesting, because we don't negate, we don't say exist or doesn't exist. And he's saying, well, then if there's something, then something must stay, something, and he's conceptually thinking about it, rather than allowing everything to be part of the mind ground. So the master responds, not to seek is to rest tranquil. Who told you to eliminate everything? Look at the void in front of your eyes. How can you produce it or eliminate it? How can you produce it or eliminate it? How is this produced or eliminated? Anybody want to venture? How do you produce or eliminate what is appearing before your eyes? Anybody? Nobody want to have a crack at it? How do you do this? How would you answer Master Huang Po here? You just go, I don't know. He'll go stand in the line over there with the other ones. Come on, somebody must know, some senior student. Okay. So how can you produce or eliminate it? It's a very wide open question, because the you, if it presupposes an individual or life of the being, was just simply, it isn't. It is just the law of dependent origination, pratika samapada, the causes and conditions are arising. This is what produces the appearances, not the individual. The individual is also part of pratika samapada. I know you guys knew that. Okay, if I could reach this Dharma, would it be like the void? So now he's still reaching for the Dharma. Morning and night, I have explained to you that the void is both one and manifold. I said this as a temporary expedient, but you were building up concepts from it. And this is the thing, people always building things on that, rather than just allowing it to flow through. Let it pass through. Do you mean that we should not form concepts as human beings normally do? I have not prevented you, but concepts are related to the senses. And when feeling takes place, wisdom is shut out. Then should we avoid any feeling in a relation to the Dharma? Where no feeling arises, who can say that you are right? And here he's referring to feeling in a way in which it belongs to an ego or a life and being, not in mind itself, which is just a perception of mind. Why do you speak as though I was mistaken with all the questions I've asked you, Your Reverence? And Master Huang Po says, well, you're a person who doesn't understand what is said to him. What's this all about being mistaken? Up to now, you have refuted everything which has been said. You have done nothing to point out what the true Dharma is to us. In the true Dharma, there is no confusion. You produce confusion by such questions. What sort of true Dharma can you go looking for? Since the confusion arises from my questions, what will your reverence answer be? Observe things as they are. Don't pay attention to other people. There are some people, just like mad dogs barking everywhere, that moves, even barking when the wind stirs among the grass and the leaves. So what he's saying here is don't, he's not saying to be separate from samsara as much as not invest in the emotions and the feelings of it and attachments to your ego. Anything that stirs up your ego will stir up mine and create confusion and will inhibit the production of wisdom. When we have wisdom, then everything is seen clearly as it is in accordance with causes and conditions, moment to moment, one sees what has arisen in the past, what is presently arising, and what will arise in accordance with whatever our reactions are to the appearances in the environment in that moment. The environment includes not just the physical environment around you, but your mental environment and the mental environment of those around you as well, that will have an impact on you. So when you see the things clearly, then you make decisions from wisdom. This is called choosing the Buddha. So I hope in your daily life and your daily practice that you choose the Buddha instead of ignorance. Don't buy into the ego. Your life will be live with less complexities and problems, especially problems that you have averted from creating in your own environment. This is how we uplift humanity and create a Pure Land here on Earth. So practice in this way. Next week we'll come up with some more, but I wanted to really use Master Wang Po to emphasize what I've been teaching for the last 2 classes. So I'll open it up to questions.
Thank you, Gilbert. Any questions from the ground? Please raise your hand and unmute yourself. Huan Xin, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you, Gilbert, again. And I'm living in UK. I need to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And just to say good morning from my side. So in the lecture, you mentioned about the Dead Samadhi. And so is you call the Dead Samadhi is the mind trapped in the one situation, or you call the dilemma of the mind. And when we do the practice, you are went in the Dead Samadhi, but you don't know the things you don't aware that the Dead Samadhi. So and I know your mind is very still, you still get a very pleasure. I just wonder if you explain more about it and how you can get out that dilemma or that situation. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you for the question. I think you kind of framed what I'm going to teach about next week, which is the application of what we're learning to meditation. It is very important, and your question is an important one in terms of knowing the proper samadhi. Samadhi is produced by the concentration of the mind. When our mind is concentrated and is holding on to the method, this is very, very good. Concentration on its own is not enough. Because, for instance, an assassin can have concentration to hold his rifle and to find his mark and then to pull the trigger, or some swordsman could do the same thing. But that's not an enlightening experience. Concentration only stills the mind to perform a particular function. Here, the concentration is stilling the mind to perform the function of the meditation. So we hold that like an archer holding, looking at the target, quiet, everything is perfectly there. You are doing the same, the single pointedness, using this concentration to develop the single-mindedness of the samadhi. Now, the samadhi, if the samadhi is one in which we block out thought, I don't want to see thought. You just block it out completely and you prohibit thought from coming in. It is possible for you to do that. But if you do, the mind becomes very dull. And that's why they call it entering a dark cave or a devil's cave, because there's nothing happening. It is dead. it's produced by this maximum concentration, but it's going nowhere. So we have to have this proper samadhi, and this proper samadhi is a samadhi that we have that is balanced with vipassana, this illumination of the mind. So the mind has to be illuminated, and as it's illuminated, essentially it is aware of its entire environment. It's aware of the mental environment as well as the environment around you. That's why I said you could hear a cricket walking into the room. But the mind is in such a state of equanimity that all of those mental impressions and appearances are perfectly balanced in the samadhi that is applied only to the method. So the mind is awake and aware. And the difference is the awareness of the mind. The perception of the mind is in the present moment on the method, and it is completely aware of its surroundings. This is the difference between that and this dead samadhi. There is no internal discussion, no thinking, nothing. Just the only thought that is there is the method, the method, the method. And in this way, we hold that. Our problem is that we get tired of doing this after 5 minutes, if you even get there. And then you just watch movies for the rest of the time you're sitting there. If you really want to do this right. And for the entire time you're there, keep coming back to applying your concentration to produce this samadhi, this proper samadhi of awareness in the present moment. It will work 100%. It will work. It will work. But you have to do that. I cannot do that for you. You know, even if I come behind you and kick your cushion, you know, it'll only be good for until you fall asleep again. The awakening is staying in that state of being in the present moment, perfectly clear of mind, perfectly understanding all of what is arising around you by virtue of pratika samappada, and staying with the method, understanding if you stay with the method, then you're not going to stray from mind. Mind then is free to be able to reveal to you mind. This is how it works. If you don't do it in this way, it won't work. Okay. So hopefully that helps you. Okay.
Thanks.
Next question.
Angela, please unmute yourself.
Hello, Sensei Gilbert. Amitofo.
Amitofo.
So, yeah, thank you for your talk today. I have 2 questions. I'll ask one at a time. So the first question I have is, you said today that everything is mind. And this is actually quite funny because recently I have been feeling that with the eyes wide open, the environment I see within me is a manifestation, or as you said, an appearance of mind. And I find it quite funny because, like, at the same time, there is this physicality of my body in a physical, like, you know, I feel gravity, I can move, you know, there is this sense of there is a me walking in this earth or this environment. But at the same time, there is also a sense of this environment is but an appearance that is within the mind. So I find it really, really funny and really odd. I don't know if you can speak to that and maybe point me in the right direction to move. Thank you. And later I'll ask my second question. Thank you.
Well, I think you're, in terms of how you're approaching it, the humor comes from seeing it. Sometimes one may want to laugh or one may want to cry when they see in sincerity that the world is an appearance. This dream. The humor is just that we held on to it for so long and we thought that this is real, and then all of a sudden we realized this is a counterfeit coin, and the real coin of the realm is mind itself. And so as long as we do not hold on to this feeling, it's good. We just have to move beyond it. So don't cling to it whatsoever. Okay, just keep applying it. Whatever you did to have this kind of a realization, just do that, okay? Without any expectations of anything, just do that. And this is the way you progress. If you hold on to this, put it on your mantle, show it to your friends or whatever, then it will soon lose its tarnish. I mean, it'll soon become tarnished and lose its shininess and will become just an obstruction. So we have to be careful not to allow that to happen. In my Monday night class, I'm speaking about that in great detail. So I don't know, it's another late class for you and tomorrow night, but if you wanted to tune in, you're going to find that some answers to your questions. That class is, I teach at a little bit deeper level than I teach here, but we're exactly talking about that right now in terms of the teachings of the indivisible nature of the realm of phenomena by Manjushri. And so that I really welcome you to do that. Okay, your second question.
Okay, thank you so much. And noted on your advice. Okay, my second question is regarding the analogy that you use of waking up in a dream. So I have been actually contemplating this question for a long time. And that is, I always wonder, right? Like, you know, the metaphor of we wake up from our night dream and then we are here in our waking life and our night dream is kind of like poof, right? It's gone. And I'm wondering whether it is the same analogy. Can we take it further and say one day when we wake up, this waking life also goes poof and our environment physically actually appearance completely changes, you know, just like our night dream appearance and our waking day appearance is different. So is that A, the possibility, or is it that B, actually it doesn't go poof, but you also mentioned it in the last sentence of your talk that let's create a pure land, right? So is it that actually the purity is inherent in whatever I am right now, in the houses that I'm looking at, in whatever dirty streets I'm seeing, it is right here, right now. Like it isn't going to be poof and then we appear somewhere else, just like the night dream analogy. So I don't know which one it is. Is it the first one or the second one, or is it both, or is it neither? Yeah, so if you could point me in the right direction. Thank you. Thank you so very much.
Trying to pigeonhole it into something that's conceptual thinking, let it float. Don't try to define it. Don't try to put it any kind of a classification whatsoever, whether it's dream or real or not. I remember when I was practicing Qigong, I had a friend and she would always ask me, is this real? And I'd say, don't ever think it's real or unreal. It just understand it belongs to mind. And you'd be very surprised, you know, even in this realm that we're in, how reality can be bent. I mean, to things that would appear to be dreamlike, but they can happen. So we don't think about things like that hard and fast. The idea is that at some point, there's times, and I hesitate to talk about this because then people will want to mimic or look for it or whatever. But it's possible that when someone has their mind has come to a stillness, that the total environment around them can disappear. And but it's kind of like watching a play on a stage, and then the stage is struck and all of the scenery falls down, and you're just left with a blank stage there with the lights. And then in the next moment, it rolls all back into place and everything's there. Kind of like the computer that was rebooted. The only difference is that when it rebooted, it took away the virus in the computer. And so the Chan is actually an antiviral program that you run. The virus that was in the computer was your identity as a ego or personality or a life and being. That's no longer there. The world is there. The only difference is that you know what it is, that it's mine. And that and sometimes can make you cry or can make you laugh at the foolishness of how long you've been kicking these ideas around. But that's all I'll say about that. But it can be that way. Okay, next question.
Thank you, Sensei.
Sarah, please unmute yourself.
Hello, Gilbert teacher. And thank you for your class today. Today, I really feel that listening to you, my mind actually softens a lot. After last week's class, I had so many questions and it held on too much and it was really difficult. But please forgive me, I still have these conceptual thoughts. Two questions. One is, I know that this emphasis is on the practice of looking into the mind, but how about using this body for practice? Because the body awareness, mindfulness by the body seems to be very effective for most people. And how about the following the Noble Eightfold Path? Does that mean that it's not so important? Can you please clarify for me? Thank you.
Well, we don't disavow the 5 precepts, the 6 paramitas, the Eightfold Path. We don't do that. But on the other hand, we understand that these are means of practice that are there, as is the body, but we don't cling to the body. We don't have to investigate the body. We don't have to look at things and in this way. I remember Shifu at one retreat, one of his senior students was so excited because he said that when he was doing the silent elimination, he could look inside of his body and he could see all the things that were wrong with it, you know. And he said, I have a problem here, I have a problem there, and whatever. And then Shifu said, that's nonsense. He says, if you're sick, go to the doctor. He said, but that's not the practice. The practice is just applying the method. That's it, nothing more. You don't have to fantasize or look at this or look at that or whatever. That's just simply appearances. And so this type of a practice that I'm presenting to you is more advanced, more profound. Of course, I don't say you should not do the Eightfold Path or 6 paramitas or whatever. It's just cutting right to the source is what the ancients said, the secret or the shortcut. So the shortcut is just look into mind, contemplating mind, staying in mind. We don't have to create any kind of conceptions or any categories or any kind of opinions about our body or feelings or whatever. And most certainly we should not be asking ourselves, who am I? I really don't like that question, because that question presupposes there's somebody there, but then you have keeping asking it, then you're reinforcing the idea that there's this life and being, even though the ultimate one, and those who are well-known advisors have proposed this kind of an introspection, don't understand the habitual tendencies that are arising from that, of reinforcing the idea that there may be an I there. Maybe it just needs to be polished up. And to do that, no, it isn't. Mind is impeccable. Whatever you have, whatever asks the questions is impeccable. It was precisely asking the questions as it is. You may think it's flawed or not flawed, but to me, I see it as an impeccable question of mind asking mind. That's it. So when we look at it, I don't think about my body. I don't even see you. I just see mine. And this body is used to carry out the functions of mind in a compassionate way. This is where you should seek.
Thank you so much, Gilbert. I really appreciate. Yeah, and I really appreciate you using Hongpo's master's teaching and what you just said, because I think this concentration thing that this Samadhi thing, I think it didn't really help me in particular. So maybe I will see what I can learn further from you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with concentration, but remember, it's the right concentration, okay? This is very, very important. So when we have the right concentration, that can lead to a proper samadhi. So the thing is that in our school of Chan is different than the Theravadan school, where they practice samadhi and vipassana, but most of their practice is heavy weighted towards the practice of concentration, developing methods to concentrate the mind. And so people are there, and then it's difficult for them to make the progression into samadhi and even into vipassana. So it's harder for them to generate it. On the other hand, in Chan, where we don't emphasize the concentration as much with so many different types of concentration techniques, it's very easy for us to lose that or not be able to develop the proper samadhi. It is why you need a well-known advisor to help you and to guide you to make sure that your meditation is right, or you could just be spinning your wheels, and you think you're going somewhere, but you're not, or you may be even stuck in a unified mind, which many, many people do, and they feel very comfortable and they can engage unified mind when they sit to meditate. Boom, they're there and they're comfortable. But that's just like what I call old dog samadhi, where you're just like an old dog lying in the sun on a spring day, just basking in the sun, and nothing else is happening. They just love that grass and that warmness on their body. But it's not going anywhere. What I am presenting is something that will produce results, for those who are sincere, they want to practice, and for the novices to learn in the correct way from the very beginning. Okay, next question.
Our participants on Chinlun, you have a question. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah, hi Gilbert, Ami Tofo. My question is towards your last statement on choosing the Buddha and not the ignorance. And I'm just quite curious about how these can be applied in our daily life. As I think from my personal experience, when I face with situations, circumstances, and when I'm going to make decisions, and using the contemplation method, where moving away from concepts and really thinking through where the issues are and how to solve it. I will go through this iteration of, okay, this is not it, this is not it, this is not it, and keep on try and error until I find a decision to find that, okay, this is the right reaction that I would do. So I'm just trying to think in terms of, how we apply that, is that, wisdom at work, or is still ignorance, and how do we, make ourselves a bit, the better, calm-minded when we face situations and make reactions. Yeah.
It just takes time and practice. The first thing is that you have to maintain your mind in the present moment to whatever's happening in that moment. You have to keep the mind still, not dwell in the emotions of the moment. Although one is aware of the emotions that are emanating from other people, because that's very important, one is aware that those emotions come from their own confusion. You need not add to that confusion or into the whole thing by yelling back or doing things. So in the beginning, we just act very natural and calm. We just watch the situation. In the beginning, there's more thinking than is necessary. But as one becomes more adept at it, then we no longer are even conscious of a decision-making process, because as you stay in the present moment in awareness, that produces its own wisdom. This is the wisdom of non-cogitation. This is the wisdom of the Buddha mind itself. And when it taps into that, the mind is able to speed up and to make incredible processes of different alternatives that could come from whatever one says. Eventually, even that disappears, and the mind just simply functions and responds spontaneously to the moment, and there's no longer any kind of an appearance of any decision making at all. It is just simply from the calmness of the mind that the mind will make the proper decision as to what happens. We maintain this vigilance of pratika samapada. So we very much are mindful of body, speech, and mind, what we're putting into mind, what we're saying, and what is our body saying. Is our body saying something, projecting something? Is our mouth saying something? What are we thinking? And so as we become adept at this, we're also become attuned to the thoughts of other people around us. And not only that, but their own karmic forces surrounding them. And we're aware of that. And more as the mind becomes illuminated, it is more aware and deeper into the forces surrounding the environment in that moment, and chooses to make a decision based on that, knowing this is beyond the perception of the five skandha. This is mind's own perception that has an all-access pass to all information. We don't get that immediately. I don't have that kind of an ability, but I have a better ability that I had when I wasn't practicing, that's for sure. So practice in this way.
Thanks, Gilbert. So that's where I still rely on a little bit on the concept. So I mean, I try to be creative. Well, I learned through all this and internalize. So then I start thinking about maybe it's something like, okay, if I got nothing to do, then I do nothing and just keep with a method. Then I just observe what is the next thing I'm going to do. And then I let the thoughts arise and I'm going to do that thing. Once that thing is done, I go back to the method again. So it's kind of silly, but I thought that it is really, remind myself continuously to say that I need to keep with the method all the time. If I'm not doing anything, I go back to the method.
In the Yogacara school, they consider the idea of memory as a positive kaita or mind characteristic. It's a CAITA. So this kaita is of memory is important because you have to remember you're a practitioner. And that's very important. You have to remember that you're on the practice. So continue to practice in this way. It will naturally find its own balance and float point. Okay? Keep going.
Thank you.
We
have one more question.
One last question. BK Pusa, is there any question from Facebook?
Okay, go ahead.
I'm just asking if there is any question from Facebook. Oh, he said no. So any one last question from our Zoom class? Nope. No one's raising their hands.
Okay, that's fine. I thank you all for tuning in. I hope that this has been instructional to you. As I say, I'm not a teacher. I'm just a guide as to how to practice. And when you understand that, then you understand what you are doing as a practitioner. That as a student, you're a student of how to practice, not just gathering knowledge. If you do this, then your practice will be very productive. So next week we'll work on that. We'll also work a little more on how to meditate. And so I hope you really have some good questions about your questions about meditation. I think this is the last one, right, Esther? So the one coming up is the fourth one. So I'm going to try to put some things in, some practical practice in there for you to do that, and we'll go through how to properly meditate as well. Okay.
Gilbert, would you lead us in dedication of merit?
Yes. Okay. You join your palms. Become mindful of all the sentient beings in all the realms, from the past, present, future, all of their sufferings, when we're aware and we compare our sufferings to the sufferings of all the others, it's not anything like that. We wish to relieve the sufferings of all sentient beings, so there comes a time when no one suffers and all will rejoice in the faith in mind. Amitabha.
Amitabha. Thank you, Gilbert, and thank you all for joining us in this session today. And we look forward to our last class next week. Right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you all. Amitabha.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Amitabha.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, teacher. After all, he's a very good teacher.
I'm not a teacher.
The master.
Take care. Good to see you all. I
Teacher,
see you.
master.
So take care. Bye-bye. See you next week.
Bye.
I'm going
Goodbye.
off. Bye-bye.
Bye.